First we had quiet quitting, then we had the Great Resignation. Now all of a sudden we have something that they're calling the Great Exhaustion. You know, they got to come up with trendy buzzwords to all these things. But this is something I've actually been feeling. And I know a lot of y'all have been feeling this too, because I've seen y'all talking about this in the comments of some of my videos, specifically the one that was talking about how time has sped up. I've seen a lot of y'all talking about this. So let me know down in the comments below if this is something that you can relate to, because I'm here to tell you, I've got a lot of free time on my hands these days because I retired from the workforce. I no longer have to show up somewhere each and every day except for the places I want to show up to. And I can tell you that sometimes I still feel pretty doggone drained. And I think there's a lot of reasons for this. I think there's a reason why people are feeling very tired and very exhausted. The first thing I think is pretty obvious, and that is the fact that people have to work now probably more than they ever have, because it's very hard to make ends meet these days. And, you know, not just that people have to work harder and work more, but they're working harder and more for what seems like less money because the cost of everything has gone up. Wages haven't increased. So you are essentially working more, and even though it might look like you're making more money on paper, the fact of the matter is your money doesn't go as far. And that can leave you feeling pretty freaking worn out. That's something I personally experienced, not because my money wasn't going as far, but because time felt like it was speeding up over the last couple of years. And I found myself working 14 to 16 hour days almost every single day for no additional pay, by the way. And that was because it felt like I couldn't get all the stuff I needed to get done in a day. Like time was just slipping away. I had to sit down in meetings with my manager every single week because she was trying to force me to go home, to not work so much. But because I was a company man and, you know, I wanted to show up for my team and my job, I felt like I had to do that. I felt like I owed it to the company to get my work done. That is not the way you should live your life, though. That is not how we should live our lives, because life is about much more than working. And if you live your life that way, I can tell you from experience, it's going to leave you feeling pretty freaking tired and very drained. But that's not the only reason I believe people are feeling very tired. I think time itself is another big reason. Like I mentioned, it feels like time's speeding up. So it doesn't seem like we can get all the stuff done in a day that we need to get done. Like time just slips away. What was weeks is now days, and what was months is now weeks. And it just seems like everything is just going so fast, and it's very hard to slow things down. I've been trying numerous things in my life. I've been distancing myself from social media. I've been distancing myself from technology. I spend as much time as I can out in nature. And those things do help a lot, but it still doesn't seem to slow time down enough. And I can never seem to get back to the way time felt back 15, 20 years ago, or especially when I was growing up. And a lot of people will say that, oh, you're just getting old, because that is a very real phenomenon that happens as you get older. Time speeds up. But explain this to me. There's a lot of very young people, including kids, that are now talking about this. So I don't think it's just that. I think it goes much deeper than that. But because we feel like time is slipping away, that can also leave us feeling very tired because we get caught up in this hustle culture. We have to work extremely hard and work a lot to get things done. And I think it goes without saying that that is very draining. That can leave us feeling pretty depleted because we are putting all of our energy into trying to get things done, but it seems like we can't ever get caught up. And on top of that, you now have social media, the internet, AI, technology in general, and all of these things are fighting for our attention. That is literally what these things are kind of designed to do. They're designed to pull our attention in every way possible because there's monetary value on our attention. So that's what these platforms do. And the bad part about that is that they are very addictive. I fall victim to this too. Sometimes I look at my usage report on my phone at the end of the week, and I am disgusted by how much I'm on my phone. And that's coming from somebody who makes a conscious effort to distance myself from this stuff. And I still spend too much time on my phone. I think we all fall victim to this. Unless you have reverted back to a flip phone and you don't actively use social media at all, I think you're probably going to fall into this category. And I'm telling you that this stuff, it depletes dopamine. It can leave you feeling very depleted. A lot of us, we wake up, first thing we do in the morning is we look at our phone. And that's usually what we do before we go to bed at night. But if you're doing that the first thing in the morning, it is immediately depleting your dopamine. And that is going to drain you. It's essentially sucking away your life force. And that's what I feel like social media and the internet's doing. It's essentially dehumanizing us, number one, but I also believe it's sucking away our life force. And I think that also goes without saying that is going to leave you pretty freaking drained, because it's taking away all of your energy. It is essentially leaving people soulless, and I think that's a big thing that's happening. Because it's definitely altering people's emotions. If you think about people and the way that they've changed over the years, there's been a very profound shift in the way people act, the way they interact with one another, and just the way they are in general. And I truly believe that is because social media and the internet and all this technology we're surrounded with, it is draining us of our life force, which is pulling away our emotions. It's making people very numb, cold, callous. It's making people almost turn into like NPCs, where you just run on autopilot. You have no emotion, you have no empathy, you have no compassion, you don't have anything, you don't feel anything. You just float through life aimlessly. And I think that's kind of where we're at. But if that's the way you live your life, you're going to be pretty doggone drained. And if you also think about what social media and the internet and all this technology does, it actually injects a lot of negativity into our lives. It is a very easy pathway for people to feed us agendas. And when they feed us agendas, a lot of it is very negative stuff. It is stuff that instills fear in us. It is essentially spiritual warfare. And that ties into our life force, because when we're being pummeled with this stuff and it's chiseling away at our spirit, that is also going to leave you feeling very drained. I mean, because honestly, that stuff is just very exhausting. How much of that stuff can you actually look at in a day and still feel like your sanity is there? I mean, essentially, because it almost makes you go insane, because there's so much stuff that we are being exposed to that we probably shouldn't be seeing and looking at, that honestly probably doesn't even affect our lives that much to begin with. But when we see it, it's very relatable and it feels like it's very personal. So all that stuff, it whittles away at us and it makes us feel exhausted. And that's another big thing that I think is happening. We're exposed to too much, and not just too much, but it's too much of the wrong kind of stuff. And that in turn has also created a whole lot of division. People now are divided over pretty much everything, and that also can leave you feeling very depleted, because I think a lot of us, we're kind of people pleasers. We go out of our way to make people happy, but now it feels like that you have to walk on eggshells around people, because if you do the wrong thing or you say the wrong thing, people are going to fly off the handle, because they're very unhinged these days. And it seems like the smallest little thing is enough to set somebody off. So now we have to tiptoe around all the subjects that we probably want to talk about. We have to try extremely hard to try to please people and make people happy. And that is very, very exhausting. And that also ties into relationships in general, because when you have all this stuff that's going on around us and all this stuff we're exposed to, and there's all this division, it bleeds into relationships. The dating world is exhausting. I don't even think I need to go too far into that one, because if you're involved in the dating world and you're out there trying to find a partner, you're going to know it's pretty exhausting. It is something I don't even expose myself to these days. I love my peace, I love my solitude, and that is where I keep myself, because I just don't want to deal with that stuff. And that's where a lot of people are at right now. They've checked out and they're going their own way, because most people simply don't want to deal with it. So with all these factors considered, it is not hard to see why people are feeling very exhausted. And it's not hard to see why we might be headed towards the Great Exhaustion, as they call it. But while all that can sound very disheartening, I think there's a very simple solution to all this. And I think we can solve this problem. And I think it really comes down to doing the things in life that you enjoy as often as possible. Finding something that fulfills you outside of work, outside the internet, outside of technology. And that is key here. I think if we can distance ourselves from our screens as much as possible, get away from all these agendas and all this noise, the better off we're going to be. And I truly believe that nature and our natural environment is the best way to do that. Not only is it very good for our mental health, it's also free. And that's something we don't think about, because, like I mentioned before, it's very hard to make ends meet. So finding solutions that don't cost you any money is very, very important. And I'm telling you right now, nature is free therapy. If I'm feeling down, or if I'm feeling exhausted or depleted, the first thing I do is I go outside. I let the sunlight hit my skin. I walk around in nature, and that immediately makes me feel a lot better. And when you couple that with distancing yourself from technology, you're also distancing yourself from all of the stuff that is fighting for your attention. So then you can focus your attention on the things that actually matter. And that's going to be different for everybody. You have to kind of forge your own path when it comes to that. But if you can put yourself in silence and make time for yourself, and if you do that while you're in nature, I find it very easy to hone into the things that are important to you. And then once you figure that out, you can start chasing those things. That gives you a reason to get out of bed every morning. It gives you a purpose. And then all of a sudden, when you have a purpose and you're working towards specific goals, now you're fulfilled, because now you are doing the things in life that you want to do, and not the things in life that you're being told that you should do. Because again, when we're looking at technology, we're comparing ourselves to other people. We believe we have to live our lives a certain way, and in a lot of cases, that is not grounded in reality. We are seeing the highlight reels, and that is the furthest thing from reality that you could probably get, because you're only seeing the best parts. And life is not all sunshine and rainbows. You're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs, but it's important to have gratitude for both those things, the good and the bad, the things that you have and the things that you don't. But when you're constantly in that digital realm and you're only seeing the good stuff, you feel like that's all life should be, and that is not realistic. Then suddenly you're placing unrealistic expectations on life, and that is only going to leave you feeling let down. There's no other option. And I have found that that's all it takes. Just focus on the basics. The small, simple things are what matters. And sometimes it seems like there's no way that could possibly work because it seems too simple. But I'm here to tell you, to me, it's the simple stuff that actually does add up. It's the small, simple things that compound. And over time, you're going to find that those things have a very profound impact on your life. They have a very profound impact on your mood and your energy levels. Because when you're bored and you're in silence, you're also replenishing dopamine. And that is very, very important, because when your dopamine is depleted, it's going to leave you feeling tired and exhausted. So do yourself a favor and make time for yourself. Calm down, slow down, find silence, find peace. We don't prioritize this stuff enough, but we all deserve it. We all owe it to ourselves to find that peace, find that solitude, find the things that bring joy to our lives, and essentially create an environment for ourselves that is not so noisy, one that does not have all these things fighting for our attention 24/7. That is very, very important. And something else that I found to be very, very important is getting back to physical interaction, quelling this division. And I know that can be a tough one, because it seems like people these days simply aren't worth it. But there is something to be said about having a support system around you. Because when you have that, now you can lift each other up. You can feed off each other's energy. As your energy increases, the energy around you increases. And that is true for people. If you think about the inverse of this, all this negativity that's being pumped into our lives, that negativity bleeds into the world around us. It makes everyone very negative. And as people become very negative, other people become very negative. People feed off that negative energy, and it brings the overall energy in that environment down. But if we can do the opposite of that, and we can bring the overall energy up, that is going to bring the energy of all the people up as well. And that is a very real phenomenon that actually does happen. As individual people become more positive, as a collective mind, everyone becomes more positive. The environment and our reality suddenly becomes more positive, and we all have more energy. And I believe it's very important not to sleep on these things, not to be so quick to discount this stuff that sounds kind of far out there and sounds kind of woo-woo, because there actually is something to this. And if we look at the state of our nation, and we look at the mood and the energy that everybody has these days, I think it kind of proves that point. And one additional thing that also ties into this that is going to help reduce your stress, therefore increase your energy, is reducing your overall expenses, reducing the amount of money that is leaving your bank account. This is something that is also very, very important, and it's something that is often overlooked. But us here in America specifically, we have become a nation of consumers. The amount of money that we're spending on stuff that we don't need is almost unfathomable. I mean, we are blowing so much doggone money, and until you sit down and do a really deep dive into your expenses and a full audit on how much you're actually spending, it can be really tough to see how much money you're just blowing for no reason at all. And it is completely unnecessary in a lot of cases. And I have found that the more you can reduce your expenses, the less you require, the less you need to work, the less you have to show up for somebody else other than yourself. And in turn, the less the system owns you, and the more that you can start to own yourself, the more that you can start to regain your energy. Because Again, when you're bleeding money and when you have to work because you have to have all this money to feed your lifestyle, then by default, you are going to be more depleted because you're giving more of yourself up. But just know that the less that you have and the less that you need, the less you're going to require. And that is fundamentally important. That is the way I live my life. And I can tell you that by doing that, my stress level is near zero because I don't have to worry about too much. I don't have to go out there and get caught up in this hustle culture and work my fingers to the bone so that I can maintain this extravagant lifestyle or so that I can pay for all these creature comforts. Because in a lot of cases, that's what it comes down to. It's a matter of paying for these creature comforts, all these things that we feel like we need in our lives. And again, that's probably because we're comparing ourselves to all these other people. We believe we have to have all this stuff, and that leads us to being massive consumers. It leads us to having to work all the time to make ends meet. So the more that you can reduce your expenses and the less that you need and the less that you require, the better off you're going to be and the more energy you're going to have overall to put towards the things in life that are actually important to you outside of work. So with all that said, if you're one of the people out there that's feeling very exhausted and depleted, just know that you're not alone. There's a lot of us out there that's feeling the exact same way that you are. And understand that there are things that we can do to combat this. And, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's the small, simple, seemingly insignificant things that add up. And if we can keep doing these things over and over again every single day, then over time, each and every one of us is going to be able to reclaim our power and get our energy back.